What's up, Ravens fans? Happy New Year. Welcome to a fresh edition of Ravens Unscripted. The 2019 regular season is in the books, so we're starting what could be the first of many postseason editions of the show. And Garrett Downing, you're outnumbered this evening.
I am outnumbered.
On the couch here. Obviously, Garrett of Ravens Media, Jeff Zrebiec back of The Athletic, Pete Gilbert. This is a first in my time on the couch. Back-to-back visits, obviously, of WBAL.
Well, they told me that Mink wouldn't be here, so I said okay.
All right. Well, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all. We get more Pete Gilbert. Fellas, good to be with you. We'll start with 4 downs. First down, Garrett. The season, as I mentioned, is in the books. 14-2. It's a cool number. As you've had some time here and with some time before the next game in the divisional round, your big picture thoughts on the season?
I mean, you have to be pleased with the season. I think it was the best regular season in Ravens franchise history. They broke just about every record you could think of. They really did rewrite the record books as you go through in rushing yards and Lamar Jackson season. They had the MVP. They had 12 Pro Bowlers. Pick a stat. The Ravens probably checked it off this year. And I just think when you think about this season, you have to come away with it feeling really good about what the Ravens were able to accomplish with a second-year quarterback, where they completely redesigned the offense around him. And they're a team that a lot of people were sleeping on this year, but they get the first overall seed, and they are feeling really good going into the playoffs.
I think people kind of forget this team had modest expectations. I mean, they didn't have modest expectations in the building, but some people had them as the third best team in the AFC North. Not to call out Sports Illustrated, I think they had them at 5-11 this year. And yeah, what they've done is been you couldn't be any more impressed with what they've done and how they've done it. They've basically filled up a defense on the fly after losing so many key players, and they rebuilt an entire offensive system that kind of took the league by storm.
I think the fact talking to fans, what just resonates again and again is how this team had so much fun, how much fun they were to watch, and that was different over the last couple of years, where even every win was such a grind out, trying to get to a Justin Tucker game-winning field goal. And here you have the most exciting player in the NFL lighting it up week after week. They scored 122 more points than any Ravens team in history. I mean, to do something like that was just so foreign. And then it was coupled with so much winning. I mean, what a combination.
Yeah, and quick thought here before we move to second down, just what that group on a Sunday evening was able to do, led by RG3, a number of, you call them backups, reserved. The emotion felt like a normal Ravens-Steelers game, and I think that's what fans are really connecting to. No matter who's on the field, this group's bringing it. So second down, though, and Jeff, you touched on it, just the thought heading into the year, especially in the AFC North, was Cleveland's winning the Super Bowl because they've got a Pro Bowl team.
Yes, I had that idea.
Maybe. We don't have to bash all publications. The Athletic, by the way, subscriptions, 50% off. But your thoughts and maybe your surprise at where we find ourselves now. The Ravens are the only team in this division with a winning record.
Yeah, I think people went into the season thinking this probably was going to be the most competitive division in the NFL. And for all intents and purposes, the Ravens put this thing away a month ago. If you look at the standings, you know, the Steelers just never were right all year. You know, when you lose your starting quarterback, you know, that's going to be huge to overcome. The Browns were the Browns, and I think we had the caveat all year with the Browns. They've so many personalities. If they get that stuff in check, if they can deal with prosperity, they'll be fine. But nobody had the Ravens running away with this division. I think there's some people wouldn't have been surprised if they won, but nobody thought they'd win it in this manner.
Yeah, I thought Pittsburgh was going to be offensively far more challenged than what we'd seen in the last 7-8 years, because they lost their stars. They didn't have them. There was no AB, no Le'Veon, and then when Ben got hurt, you knew they weren't going to score a lot of points. So as far as, you know, expectations for them, it wasn't that far from what it was. But Cleveland, you always just have to remember, when you have ownership and you have management that is just not consistent and will not work together to make sure and do all the little things you have to do to win, it doesn't matter what roster you bring. And the Bengals, we'll get Joe Burrow.
There you go. Continuity's key in the NFL. Third down, Garrett, the playoff picture is now set. And the Ravens, because of their seeding, had the luxury of kind of looking at it all, especially for this first weekend, wild card weekend. What has your attention when you look at the matchups this weekend and then what that could mean for Baltimore in 2 weeks?
Well, first of all, I'd say it's just incredibly nice to go into this first playoff weekend and be able to kick back, just like this on Sunday and Saturday and watch the games. It's a new feeling, and it's really nice to be in this position. I think I'm shocked that the Patriots ended up losing that game against Miami on Sunday to lose the second overall seed, and now they're going to have to go and play in that first weekend. Look, I don't really think it matters which team comes in here the next week. I don't think I'm really rooting for one team or the other, but it's just going to be nice and relaxing to sit back and watch.
Funny, John Harbaugh said on Monday that practice Tuesday, practice Thursday, practice Friday, and Saturday we're going to watch football. Get back and look around, and they will scout all three of those teams during the week and then figure out who they're going to play. And so that idea that you go back to for the team as well, not just for all of us and not just for fans, but they will too be kicking back on a Sunday, probably with paying a little bit more close attention than we will. But that's what you have earned at this point, and then to just be totally dialed in and focused going forward.
You could make a case for any of these 3 second-round matchups to be the most difficult. You could make a case for the Titans. You could make a case for the Bills. You can make a case for the Texans. But the Ravens are at home where they want to be come start the playoffs. Patriots and New England are going to have to go through each other before they even get to the conference championship game. So this is the best possible draw the Ravens could look for, also while knowing, you're playing this time of year, so everybody's going to be a challenge of sorts.
All right, fourth down. It is the postseason, but it's also coaching season right now when you think about obviously the openings that have already started to roll through. And when you have as successful a season as the Ravens have had, your assistants, and in this case, Wink Martindale on the defensive side and Greg Roman on the offensive side, are going to draw attention. So, Pete, I'll start with you. Look, this is mostly speculation, but of the two or both, which do you think is maybe on their way out?
It is very interesting to see. I wouldn't be shocked if both were back here again, because Wink has he's gone up and down between a defensive coordinator and linebackers coach kind of throughout his career, back and forth a little bit. Greg Roman has had offensives that have been successful with predicated on the run. You got to find just the right fit. I still think, though, that both of them will be back next year. I would be surprised if either was hired as a head coach.
Yeah, I think the Ravens have a chance of keeping them, but everybody's seeing what they're doing with Lamar Jackson, so that's in Roman's favor.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're both great coaches. I think the Ravens obviously hope that they're both back, but I think it's going to be hard to keep both of these guys. They're great coaches, and when you're 14-2, the league takes notice, and teams are looking for great coordinators who can move into that role and take over and be a head guy, and I think that they're both going to get a number of looks.
Do you like the way they do that, Evan, to just take a great coordinator and make...
I would say the system needs some tweaking, but I am happy that these two coaches are getting the attention that they richly deserve. Coming up next, quick hits. How about this? We're in a postseason edition of Ravens Unscripted, but we're debuting a new segment here, Quick Hits. I'll put some topics out there, and we'll banter it around the couch, if you will. First up, favorite Ravens game?
I'm going to say that game in Seattle. The Ravens were 4-2 at that time, and I think everybody around Baltimore and around the country was kind of wondering, how good is this team? Can they actually go on the road, beat a really good opponent? At that point, Russell Wilson was the one, not Lamar Jackson, who was leading the MVP conversation. And then I think this season kind of turned on that Marcus Peters pick 6. Even in that game, I felt like Seattle was kind of moving towards a victory. That changed that game, and I think changed the season. That one.
I'm going to go, I think that probably was a defining moment. I'm going to go off the beaten path a little. I think the Rams game was very memorable because all last year we talked about how, Sean McVay and this innovative, fun offense. The Rams were this in team. Then the Ravens went in a primetime television audience and looked like the it team, the fun team. They couldn't stop
It was like
them.
homecoming. I mean, that game was in blowout mode by the middle of the third quarter.
It was so much fun to watch, and I think that's where Lamar really started to put some distance for the MVP trophy.
I mean, he threw 5 touchdown passes. They won 45-6. It was on national TV. They could do no wrong. Even when he fumbled a snap, he picked it up and ran it to the 2. It was a game that was just remarkable and really made me say, I don't know what team I'm watching. I haven't seen a Ravens team do anything like this before, but I'm with you. I had that same one written down. That was my favorite game of the year to watch.
All right, I'm going the 49ers game in the rain. I didn't have to deal with it that time, but that game felt like what could be a possible Super Bowl preview. I should have said this out of the gate. This is not necessarily a non-Lamar segment, but he's going to be excluded from some of these superlatives because don't worry, we're going to get to Lamar Jackson. Next up, we'll do a snake draft here. Defensive Player of the Year for the Ravens?
I'll go outside the box a little bit. I'm going Chuck Clark.
Hey, I was going to do that too. Mind meld.
When he, got the green dot
It's
in
unbelievable.
charge of what is going on with the defense from that point forward. I mean, there are other parts to it, but here's a guy who they said all along is a late-round draft pick that there's a lot of potential there. He got his opportunity, and he has made the most of it. He's been so very good, making big plays and making sure everyone is doing their job.
Oh, who are you taking? I thought we were going
Snake
snake
draft
draft
here, Jeff.
Yeah, you're
Come on,
next.
you're
You're next
up.
in line.
Okay,
Banter, let's do
I'm
this.
going Marlon Humphrey just because, first of all, I think he's probably been their most consistent player from week 1 on. And, we all talk about the defensive resurgence starting in probably about week 5. But from day 1 of the season, from day 1 of training camp, Marlon Humphrey has been their best defensive player on the field. And I think we so soon forget it was Marlon Humphrey's strip of Juju Smith-Schuster in that week 5 game. The Ravens were on the ropes.
You're looking at
They
2
were in
and
about to
big
lose.
trouble. Yeah.
2
And he
3
made the
3.
key defensive play of the game there. Justin Tucker kicked the game-winning field goal. And, that's just one of several game-changing plays he made.
No love for Matthew Judon from you guys. I'm going Judon. Think about how thin that position was. Everyone had questions about the departure of Zadarius Smith and Terrell Suggs. Matthew Judon's put together his best season as a pro and has played a huge role for this defense. I'm going with the pass rusher.
All right, let's keep it rolling. Garrett, you're up here. Most pleasant surprise of a player?
Well, I'm going to go now with Pete's guy, Chuck Clark. I mean, Chuck, for all the reasons that you mentioned, late round guy, doesn't enter the season as a starter, gets thrown into the starting lineup with the green dot, and has played incredibly well.
Don't you have to mention a guy that lives in an RV? I mean, come on. Bradley Bozeman, for all the talk.
Took my guy.
For all the talk about how they're in trouble on the interior offensive line and who's going to play where. Bradley Bozeman's been beyond serviceable. He's been very good. He's probably one of their most improved players from last year, and he's been a rock for them every game he's been out there.
I got one for you.
Oh, no, go ahead. So I was thinking, Pat Ricard, Project Pat. The surprise is not the versatility we knew about, but the way that he could excel at both. To have a play in Cincinnati, to force a monster sack, forcing a fumble, that turned into a touchdown, to catch touchdown passes, to block T.J. Watt all the way almost out of bounds to help maybe protect RG3, who was getting beaten up in the last game a little bit by Watt. All the little things that he does, and they have rewarded him for it. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, from barely
Glad I
on the
thought of that.
roster to Pro Bowler is pretty good. All right, last one. Best front office transaction. Lot to choose from, Pete.
Well, I mean, I'll start first. Thank you, Marcus Peters. I mean, that is the best.
Yeah.
I don't think that's really arguable because of what you gave up to get him, a 5th-round pick in Kenny Young, who's not playing for the Rams. And then he came in, game 1, the pick 6, has another one, breaks up the play in Buffalo to seal a game. He's been so very good. And then you're able to lock him up for 3 years beyond that. Eric DeCosta.
Yeah, we don't have a time frame on these, so I'm going to go all the way back to the offseason and say when they signed Mark Ingram, he's
done.
really given them more of an offensive identity. He's been a great complementary piece for Lamar Jackson. He's been a huge in replacing the leadership void, and his numbers are damn impressive. He's done it all for them.
Yeah, and kind of a heart and soul of the team guy. I mean, what would everybody be saying in Baltimore right now if Mark Ingram weren't here? He wouldn't have big trust for everybody to
Gus
jump on board.
Edwards looked pretty good on Sunday.
Gus Edwards has been really good.
He
but I
is
just
not
think,
coming up with big trust.
yeah, but Mark Ingram has been a guy that has been just such a heart, like I said, a heart and soul guy of this team, and he has put up some incredible numbers. And look, I think Gus is good, but I'm with you, Jeff. I think Ingram.
So you couldn't come up? I gave Pete a secret. You can't come up with somebody else?
I could go with the other one. Honestly, would be Josh Bynes.
That was another one.
Yeah,
too.
Or when he
Josh
traded
Bynes.
Joe Flacco for a 4th-round pick.
Oh, wow.
Sure, but
There's a
I
lot
would
to
kind of
choose
group
from.
Bynes and Fort together. Those two guys, the addition of them at that inside linebacker spot has been, paid dividends for this defense.
Absolutely. Quick hits. I liked it. All right, more Unscripted coming up. What's going on, everybody? Standing by the big monitor wall here, so that must mean some Ravens Mailbag. Tweet us your questions using the hashtag Ravens Mailbag, and we'll get them up here on the big screen, and the guys will give them your answer, or their answer. How big would it be for Lamar to not only make it to his ultimate goal, but to win it in his home state, obviously that being Florida? Would this team, in that case, go down as one of the best teams in NFL history? Jeff, a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, well, this season started in Miami for the Ravens, and it's been the season of Lamar.
Poetic.
So it would be only fitting if it ended, in Miami with them, hoisting a Lombardi with Lamar in front of all his family and friends. So yeah, that would be an incredibly interesting storyline. As for the best team in the NFL, sure. I think most people think about the NFL and teams more in terms of dynasties and what you're able to do, and the jury would still be out on that. But if they win the Super Bowl, that's going to mean them winning 15 straight games in a row, and they've had the best point differential since the 2007 Patriots. I think that would qualify. That would at least get them in the conversation.
It's pretty good company to be in. All right, next up, this one's for Garrett. Who is the Ravens' top cornerback in your opinion?
There's a lot of good ones. I'm going to go with Marlon Humphrey. I know Marcus Peters is the guy that gets the pick sixes, and so that draws a lot of the accolades. But I still think it's Marlon. Play to play, he can just run with anybody in the NFL. He can go up and match up against a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, go up against him for 80 snaps a game, and keep somebody like that in check. There's a lot of good corners on this team. For me, Marlon is still the top of the list.
Yeah, it's a bevy of options. All right, last up, this one's for Pete Gilbert. What are the playoff teams that are the hardest matchup for the Ravens? Obviously, we're talking mostly AFC or as a whole here.
We'll go out about it.
Yeah.
I think you look at who they've played already, and so, all right, Buffalo, that was a tough game for sure, but I can't see the Bills coming here and scoring enough points to get the job done. Kansas City, on the other hand, we know can score against this Ravens team. Now, they haven't played the revamped defense that has come together since really Seattle when Marcus Peters arrived, and it's a much better group than they played in week 3.
KC defense is better.
Is better, too. So I think Kansas City is also very, very hot. And in fact, they said after the game on Sunday they were the hottest team in the NFL, which I was kind of like, there's 12 in a row. Anyway, they're very good.
How do you define hot?
They're very good, and that would be tough. If you're looking at the NFC, because San Francisco played them very tough here, because they will have a bye, which makes them much more likely to get to the Super Bowl, that would be the toughest NFC
quickly,
matchup.
guys.
I think in the AFC it's the Chiefs. I mean, that's a team that completely scares me. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes, last year's MVP. I mean, they can put up a ton of points, and they've beaten the Ravens already once this season.
Yeah, I think it's the Chiefs, too. And we all know what Mahomes can do, generational type talent. But what makes them scarier this postseason is their defense has really improved.
All right, keep those questions coming using the hashtag Ravens Mailbag. We talk Lamar Jackson after this. Time to close out a Ravens Unscripted postseason edition here, maybe a bye week edition as well. Obviously, that divisional game coming up. And it seems like a great time, fellas, to sink into the Lamar Jackson experience, that MVP season, I think we can safely call it at this point. And much like Quick Hits, we're going to run through some topics here, and you give us your thoughts. So, Pete, we'll start with you on this one. Best game for Lamar this year?
I'm going to week 1. It set the tone so dramatically to throw 5 touchdown passes, 324 yards, to show that he didn't have to win running the ball. I think it 3 carries, 6 yards,
Pretty
something like that.
Pretty good for a running back game.
Pretty good for a running back. That set the tone that this was going to be something very different than what we had come to know.
I want to say the Patriots game, because all we heard is the genius in New England and this unbelievable defense that was setting all these records on the season was going to figure out a way to slow them down. And they never really did. He did whatever he wanted. He controlled that game. He waltzed in for that first touchdown and kind of set the tone for the whole game. Then he hits Nick Boyle, which he was trying to do for weeks to get him that first career touchdown. And again, it was another primetime game against a really good opponent. And I think people started to realize then that this kid is going to have a special season.
I'm going to go with the Bengals game in Cincinnati. That delivered us that iconic moment.
We might be getting to that in a second.
Yeah, that game, I think, just was overall such an impressive game, and it had the moment that we're all going to be talking about.
All right, Jeff, we'll go away from the snake draft on this one. Best play. Obviously, Garrett brings up that Bengals game, but is that yours?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to follow Garrett on this one. Mine is the 4th and 2 run in Seattle in the rain where he called his shot. And there's something symbolic about John Harbaugh putting the game on his young quarterback and trusting him in a key spot when they could have just kicked the field goal. But that's not what the season's been all about for them. They've been aggressive to the end. They gave him the ball, called a QB power play, and just said, "Go get the first down."
And that's before he had all the equity. I mean, he had played well up to that point, but it wasn't like week 12 where I mean, it really felt almost out of character at that point to go that way, and they went that way and never looked back.
Well, John Harbaugh he was so aggressive starting, really in the last couple of years, and that was just furthering. He'd already said, he'd made up his mind he wanted to go for it. He just wanted to give Lamar, they wanted to get his reaction to that, and that iconic moment of, hell yeah, I want to go for it. You want to go for it? Yeah, and so that was
What's
really
your play?
cool. My play though was a little bit different though, and it's week 2. It was 3rd and 10, dropping a dime.
Oh, the best throw, for sure.
Hollywood Brown on, again, showing that he was not just going to be a running back.
Yeah.
He was going to make a play like that. That throw was spectacular. First rounder Hollywood making a monster play there. I thought that really resonated.
I mean, I'm going to go back to the well. I just talked about the play in Cincinnati.
That's the one. Contractually, we have to.
There
have
are
it
a
in
lot
here.
from which to choose.
Honestly, if you're talking about Lamar Jackson in 20 years and you're pulling up the highlight reel, that is the one that everyone is going to watch. The kids are going to be emulating that one out in the playground. That was just an incredible play.
All right, guys, quickly here. Best moment of Lamar's 2019 regular season, Garrett.
I like him on the sidelines wearing the sunglasses. All in that Cincinnati game, that was my favorite moment. That's just a great image of how much fun he is, how much fun this team is having. That's the one I'll go with.
I'm going to go with after the Chiefs game where he basically, I know it was a loss, but he basically felt he didn't play well enough. And he sort of said, you guys can count on me. I'm going to improve going forward. And he never really had a poor game rest of the way. I think we talk about turning points. You started seeing him emerge as a leader of this team even when he wasn't at his best.
I thought when he bought the Rolexes, Karen.
Did you get? No, you didn't get one. That's okay. Well, there's plenty of time here for more moments from Lamar Jackson, but not next week because the Ravens have a bye, so you can kick your feet up just like Garrett Downing. Fellas, this was a fun show. Enjoy your bye week, if you will, and we'll see you right back here next week to get ready for the divisional round Saturday night under the lights on the 11th.